Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackman.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackman, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football, it's up for grabs, it's covered in the end zone by Will Blackman for a Green Bay touchdown!
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Ric Bucher.
Ric Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackman, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends on the United WeCast Network. I'm Ric Bucher. You can find me at Bleacher Report or on Twitter at Ric Bucher. He's NFL vet and Super Bowl champion Will Blackman. You can find him on NFL Network, and you can find him on Twitter at Will Blackman. And you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. That's important so that you stay up to speed with whatever the show is doing and whatever we're giving away and whatever prizes, money, whatever it is that we are providing, including updates, I would think, on the NCAA bracket challenge for the Bucher and Friends podcast, which we updated in our last podcast. Last I checked, Chance Bucher, my daughter, is still leading, and Will Blackman is still fading.
I didn't even look.
Yeah, well, nothing's changed since we did the last podcast, so. But you will have another opportunity. I did read that this is the first time, first time in a long time, if ever, that this past weekend, all of the favorites won. If you picked an upset, it cost you.
Okay.
And that generally does not happen.
So round two, all the favorites won.
All the top seeds won across the board in the second round.
Okay.
So we were just talking about, you asked me why my hair was jacked up, and I said because I had gone to surf. And then you asked why I was surfing since I grew up in Ohio. And I said, not to recount the entire
please do.
air conversation, but I said, because I got bored with the sports that I grew up with. And you said, bored or you just weren't good enough. And so I had to take a moment to think about that. And I decided that, no, ultimately it was because I was bored and I'm past wanting to compete every time I do something. I want to compete against myself.
Though. I didn't really expect a legit answer. It was just a challenge.
Okay.
Obviously, if you play a different sport, it's because you were bored playing with the sports.
Yeah, I also, honestly, the reason that I stopped playing soccer was because I would get frustrated that I couldn't play at the level that I had played previously, and the people around me couldn't play at that level. And when you're not playing, collegiately, or it's men's soccer, it's weekend soccer, right?
Right.
If I'm getting frustrated over that, then the problem is with me, not with them. And I should bow out. It's not because they're not good enough.
I would never play a pickup football game.
Yeah. For the same reason or just because?
For the same reason.
Yeah.
Also, too, I get even if I play collegiately, there would probably be people out there looking at me as an opportunity to try to prove a point.
Yes.
And it might get ugly.
Yes.
Because I would welcome it.
Yeah. Well, and that's, yeah. And I
don't have time for it.
I had a couple of those too.
I'm sure you did. I know you're a little hothead, man. I know you are. Okay. That's what's funny. I know you're a type.
Oh boy, you got me pegged on that one. And that's just from doing a podcast.
That's just from doing but here's the thing too. When I play pickup basketball, I just go to play, right? I go to play. But if we lose on just some nonsense, then that's where I'm kind of some days I have gone home really annoyed, and I'm like, man, that's not me, Yeah. So that's why right now I got my knee fixed.
A little bit more than annoyed. A little bit more than annoyed. You went home mad. You went home.
Well,
you went. You were stewing.
I told my wife. Yeah, okay. I told my wife I was annoyed. So I went. I got some really good shoes. I told her I got some new Mambas. Right now, I'm getting my knee fixed. I'm not playing with these guys anymore.
Oh, you know, there's still a competitive. And you were just telling me, the reason I brought this up is because you were just telling me how people say, oh, you're going to miss the competition. And you're like, no, I just want to chill. And here you are, like, you're getting your knee fixed so you can win at pick up hoops.
I'll get my knee fixed so I can actually work out. I want to go run.
What are you having done, and how's it holding you back?
I have some like osteoarthritis from all the surgeries I had.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and it's my thing too. Like, the reason why I want to chill, but I still have like competitive stuff in my head is because physically, if a team were to sign me right now, I'd be just fine. So that's why it's like, yeah, right. I'm not in the NFL anymore. Like I'm healthy. I'm out here healthy.
Yeah.
And it's hard to still be capable to do it and not be able to do it.
Yeah. I would imagine 100%.
Yeah. It's one thing that, like, my body's done. I know I got head injuries and I'm like, oh, my body's ruined. I can't play. I can still go out there and ball.
Speaking of which, Rob Gronkowski.
Yes.
Has announced his retirement. That is a guy that I would dare say physically he's ready to hang it up. Could he still play? Yeah, probably. Can he play at the level that he did, and is his body telling him to quit? I would say yes to that as well. He's in a different spot than you are. Is that fair?
Yeah, totally.
Because he has the opportunity to still play, but physically he's decided, I'm going to move on. You physically feel like you could still play, you just haven't been able to find that spot. Yeah,
I mean, I think for him, that's what it's been. I mean, he had some like really, really, really tough injuries on his body. Now I have too, but like his were like backs and like things that put him
ACL.
Down for a while. Yeah, ACL, exactly. And him being so big, it's like everyone's just taking a shot. Everyone's trying to tear him up. Every week it's a car wreck for him. It's literally a car accident every day.
You've covered him.
I have.
You've played against him.
I have.
What's that like?
Well, first of all, he's 6'7" on the street.
There aren't a lot of 6'7s on the street.
He's 6'7".
A lot of 4'3s on the street. Not a lot of 6'7s.
He's 6'7" in the street. So just imagine in pads and cleats with a helmet, this dude is a giant. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like I said, in the NFL, there's tons. Everyone's a mutant in their own right. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Some way. Yep.
In some way. And whether it's speed, strength, intelligence, it's like you have some innate ability that got you there.
Right.
You know? Whether it's resilience, you know? I remember when I was in New York and we were in walkthrough and I was like messing around with Chris Canty, one of our defensive tackles, right? And I was just teasing on, messing around. Remember, he's 6'7", 320. And I was about probably 208 at the time. That's a good size for just a regular male, right? 208, 6'1". Sure. I remember he grabbed me by my shoulders, like squeezed my shoulders together, picked me up, and moved me behind him like a child. Like collapsed my arms together, picked me up, and moved me like a child, like a chess piece.
Wow. And
I was just like, that is crazy.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward, you know. Gronkowski, he's 6'7", 260, 270, about that, and can run. Last thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to put my hands on this man.
Yeah.
He's just going to take me and throw me to the coolers.
So how would you, and by the way, when I watched him play, I always thought of one of the Transformers.
Absolutely.
Because he just looked so much bigger, and his stride, and it was like, what do you do with that? If you're a DB, what do you do with that?
He was athletically awkward.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
It wasn't super smooth, but he could run a crisp route. You know? He could run it the right way. He can separate from somebody. He can go over your head and snag the ball with one hand. Like, he was that athletic and that talented. That's why it was funny. But I remember we were playing the Patriots one week when I was on the Redskins, and you're like, hey, you know, the coaches, they always tell you to, like, hey, get in their face, you know, do this to this guy. And I'm like, dude, like, sometimes players, sometimes you gotta play above the coaching. Okay. I was like, I'm not gonna go press this guy.
Right.
He just took a corner from the safety from the Colts and threw him into the golf cart. Okay, literally under the golf cart.
Transformer.
Yeah. So I remember we're in the red zone. He runs out to be the solo receiver on my side, and we're a man, so the safety has to cover the tight end. And I saw Tom Brady look at Gronkowski, and I hear the crowd roaring, and I'm like, "Here we go." Here we go. I know where they're going.
Yeah.
The whole offense is on the other side, and it's just me and Gronk, and everyone's yelling. And ball snap, I was impressed, as if I was going to put hands on him. I knew he couldn't wait. And so the ball snap, and I just bailed. I just took off to the back of the end zone. That's exactly where Tom threw it. And so before I can even try to get it, Gronk pushed me in those incomplete pass, and I just started laughing. I looked at my coach. I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Optimus Gronk.
Man, Gronk is a name itself.
Yeah. Yeah. He would just be his own transformer. You're right. You're absolutely right. So it's just going to sound like a crazy question. So how would you play him? Like, how would you try, if you knew it was coming your way, how would you try to break that up? How would you try to play him?
I mean, the main thing is you want to try to stay in front of him. Just expect to get pushed. Try to keep your balance and just stay in front of him. I mean, that's just the main thing. And I say that for any type of coverage. I like to stay in front of the receiver as much as I can because you have a chance to play in the ball. If you're in trail position or if you're side by side, you're going to get pushed off. Especially someone like Gronk. His catch radius is so big. It's damn near impossible. Yeah. So that's the main thing. And I would play off. I would. Yeah, he'll run a slant, drive on a slant, break it up. I know he has massive hands too, but do what you can. But that was the great thing about him is that you can try, but he was still very, very dominant.
Where do you rank him among all-time tight ends?
I rank him. I mean, he can arguably go down as the best tight end, but I made a comparison in terms of, like someone said, it was Dan Orlovsky. He said that Gronk changed the game. In terms of tight ends, he changed the game. There would be no Greg Olsen. There would be no Travis Kelce. There would be no Zach Ertz. And I wholeheartedly disagreed.
Okay.
I said
Tony Gonzalez? Tony Gonzalez?
Yeah, I would say Kellen Winslow Sr., Tony Gonzalez, Mike Denton.
That's a good one. Yeah.
They all changed the game in terms of like the receiving tight end.
Yep.
Right? Even Mackey way back in the day, changed the game in terms of a tight end. I said Gronk is like Shaq. He's in his own category. There's not going to be. I haven't seen another Shaq.
Right.
Shaq is just dominant, and Shaq is who he is. He's a unicorn. He's once in a lifetime type of guy. Same thing with Gronk. You're not going to get a tight end that blocks like an offensive tackle, catches like a receiver. That's not what Travis Kelce is. That's not what Olsen is. Mike Gesicki from the Dolphins, he just got drafted. He was an athletic basketball player. He's not a blocking tight end,
Yeah. Well, but, I mean, that to me is what made Gronk so devastating and why I think that the Patriots are really going to miss him.
100%.
Because even with this last year when he was obviously subpar, when it came to winning the Super Bowl, he was the difference maker. He might have made the biggest play. I think they ran it
from
they
all
tried
angles.
Yes. And I just don't know that they have. I know they've won a Super Bowl without him when he was hurt, but I don't know that they have that big play or just the fact that they could exploit how you set up and use Gronk in two different ways. He could block and he could catch, and they would basically take advantage of whichever way you played. Depending on the personnel that you put out there, they could counter it. And to me, it all hinged on Gronk, the fact that he was that versatile, because he could block. He was a great blocker, and obviously was a handful when it came to catching the ball. So that's where I think that, like, you would know better than I don't recall anybody who struck me as being, and not change the game, but just being such a two-dimensional threat as a tight end, like so above par at both of those disciplines.
Right.
I don't know that there's been another tight end that's been that good at both of those things.
But that's my point in terms of yeah, like I said, he could arguably be the best ever, in terms of his skill set and what he has done. Now, if we're talking about just straight out there balling, it's Tony Gonzalez to me.
Okay.
I think he is. I mean, his worst season was his second year in the NFL, and other than that, he just went off.
How much of that, too, is, though, that, first of all, because of Tony, I feel like Tony was featured more. Gronk got more than most Patriots. Like, it wasn't quite even, but they are an equal opportunity program, system, whatever you want to call them. And the combination of you would feature Tony more, and Tony was just more of an athlete. Like, he was more of what you see as an athlete. He had more wiggle. He had more, like, as you said, Gronk always had this kind of awkwardness about him that I think it was effective. But, when I put them side to side, it's like, who's the better athlete? I would say Tony Gonzalez was the better athlete. Right,
because he changed the game in terms of the basketball player playing football. I mean, that's the trend now. That's what's going on. Now, to say Gronk wasn't featured, I would say that he was. I would say he was the main weapon. He had in nine seasons he played, he had 4 1,000-yard seasons as a tight end. In his second year, he had 17 touchdowns.
Yeah, well, he averaged something like 0.69 touchdowns a game. Like, he nearly...
A season, yeah. He averaged 15 yards a catch. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I mean. I feel as if the number of catches, like, featured meaning we're going to go to him a lot, we're going to get a lot. He just made the most out of of his usage. His usage rate is through the roof as far as efficiency is concerned. It reminds me, just speaking physically, of kind of that transformer, big, awkward, just kind of beats you up. I feel like J.J. Watt is the defensive version of Gronk.
Yeah, just the way he's coming up. But J.J. Watt is very, very, very smooth, though.
Smoother. But I feel like he just kind of overpowers people.
I remember listen, when I was in Jacksonville, we went down to Houston. And he was in the middle. We were kicking a field goal. And he ended up blocking the field goal, but it looked like he was just moving chairs. Like the ball was snapped, and he was just walking through chairs and just moving them. And he literally blocked the field goal and just walked off the field. Didn't even look.
Yeah. Okay. So before we leave this subject, how much of a impact is he going to have on the Patriots? Like, how much does your view of what they're capable of next year change, knowing that Gronk is not going to be there?
I'm trying to think, he played in like 12 games this year.
I think so. He had only 1 year, first year, maybe his second year, where he played all 16 games. He never played full seasons.
I think it's going to be tough because you can't really replace what he has done, but it's going to be interesting because I'm sure the Patriots will find a way to make some kind of adjustment in terms of what they can do there. Something's going to happen this offseason. Something's going to happen this draft. Yeah, but you cannot replace that. So it'll be interesting. I can't say like they're going to be great. I can't say they're not going to be great because they're New England and they're the best dynasty in football, right? The best organization in football ever. So they'll figure it out.
The one thing I want to hit before we get to Johnny Manziel and talk about that. So when it comes to TV, there's a philosophy, a methodology, and this is why teams or why networks buy live programming or buy sports programming, even if they're not necessarily a sports network. And it's what I experience every year after the NCAA tournament. Is that I turn on my TV and I find myself watching True TV, which I would never watch at any other time. But I'm suddenly watching shows or I'm exposed to shows on True TV, and it's simply because that's where I left the TV when I turned it off after watching an NCAA tournament game. And you know what I find is that it works in that I'm exposed to shows that I would not have even been aware of otherwise, or I'm reminded, oh, yeah, that they show that on True TV. Practical Jokers is one of them.
Right.
But it doesn't hook me. Like I don't start watching True TV or go back and watch that show anytime the rest of the year. So it kind of works, but it actually kind of doesn't. For me, it's if I hear about a show, if I'm interested in a show, I'll go find that show. Were you the one who was telling me about Billions?
I don't know if I told you about it, but someone told me to watch that. Like that should be next to my list, and it is. It's on my list. I'm watching Homeland.
Are you watching?
I'm watching Homeland right now.
I watched the first 2 Billions.
And you're hooked.
Woo! It's good. Somebody told me I should watch it. And
First 2 episodes, the first 2 seasons.
First 2 episodes.
Oh, there you go.
Of the first season.
Yeah.
I went back and watched the pilot because I tuned into it the other day and I watched it, and it's like season 3 or whatever season they're in. It was a current episode.
You can't do that, yeah.
And I watched it and I was like, eh. And then I watched the pilot and I went, oh, I see. I see why. It's really good. So
Finishing Homeland right now. That's our deal.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. I'll add that.
Homeland right off the bat is not a game. We stayed up till like 2 the other day.
Watching? Did you binge it?
We watched like 7 episodes, my wife and I.
See, I would do that. I cannot get my wife to do that. She will watch maybe 2. 2 is the limit. And then she's conking out.
She likes it too. She's hooked, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, she hasn't seen Billions yet. That is, we're catching up on Narcos.
Okay.
Because we were redoing the house, and so the main TV in the house that we had Apple TV and everything hooked up to broke, kaput, whatever. And I didn't want to replace it, knowing that we were going to buy a flat screen specifically for the remodeled room, and it wouldn't fit. That size wouldn't fit in the old room.
Okay.
So we just kind of went without TV in the main room, which meant we didn't do any family watching. I got TVs when I'm working out, but I'm usually watching games or whatever. So we didn't. And then in the studio here, I've got screens, but that's all kind of sports related stuff. And so now we're playing catch up. Narcos, Billions, and then Game of Thrones coming back. I mean, I'm going to be spending more time watching TV than I normally would.
Yeah, we are. Homeland, they just leave us hanging after every episode. So we're like, we can't go to bed. We can't go to bed. Anyhow.
Yeah, I know that one. All right. Johnny Manziel made his debut with the Memphis Express against the Birmingham Iron.
Yep.
They ended up winning. He only played, I think, 3 series, though. Did not. I forget what his numbers were.
He completed. He had a nice 36-yard pass, I think it was.
He ran for 20 yards too. I mean,
first play was a keeper.
Right.
For 12 yards.
So did you watch? I recorded it and I have not watched it yet. But here's the thing: I recorded it. That's the Johnny Manziel effect.
That is the effect. That's what. Listen, I had the TV on and Memphis was playing. I was like, oh, that's right. Johnny's playing.
You're gonna watch.
I watched.
Would you have watched?
They showed him on the sideline more than they showed the game.
Yeah.
He was mic'd up and didn't even start.
People can hate on the fact that Johnny is still in the game and he's blown a multitude of opportunities, and there's some questions about some of the things he's done as far as domestic violence and all that is considered, and all that. And I'm not defending any of that. But this is just the reality of the entertainment business. If people are interested in you, they will tune in. And Johnny Manziel is one of those personalities that it's not necessarily his performance. It's not just the quality of his play. There's some of that. I think there's the carryover from being a Heisman Trophy winner.
I mean, that's where it started. That's where he earned the initial attention, is from what he did in college.
Right.
And then on top of him just being a character.
Yes.
And then it's funny because it's almost like, the big personalities. You look at someone like, I always bring up Mayweather because majority want to see him finally lose. So that's why they tune in.
Right.
They're going to buy the pay-per-views because hopefully this guy can defeat Floyd. And the other people would just love watching Floyd.
How much do you think Floyd knows that and has cultivated that?
He knows that wholeheartedly, 100%. That's why I feel like he draws the fights to the very, very end just to piss everybody off. And like, hey, keep buying pay-per-views. I'll let this guy do what he wants to do, and then I'm just going to go and win the fight.
Yeah.
That man is brilliant. Okay.
I don't know that you make the money he has and had the career that he has if you don't. If you're not manipulating the business the way he has. I don't think that's happens.
That's the whole reason he fought Conor. He's like, come on, man. Like, he does these deals like, yo, first of all, if you fight Floyd, that is going to be your biggest payday of your entire life.
Yeah.
He knows that already. So guys are like, yeah, I'll take. That's why people don't want to fight Floyd because they feel like they can beat him. People want to fight Floyd because they know that's going to be their biggest payout ever. Easily.
Now, Johnny Manziel, that's not the case with him. This isn't some...
Okay, no. But listen. Teams sign him because it's market. It's money for them.
Well, this is where I always wonder how much it's the GM, how much it's the owner versus the coach. Because you know that coaches will often look at that and say, that's more of a headache or that's more of a distraction, or because Johnny is as popular as he is, how easy is it going to be for me to coach him? The GM or the owner is going, you know what? The GM's going to say, it's going to make the owner happy, so I'm going to do this because it's going to put more money in the owner's pocket because he's going to sell more tickets, he's going to draw more attention, etc., etc. So guess what, head coach? You need to live with this. You need to work with it because it's for the good of the franchise. And that's just the reality. If you want to be mad at all the opportunities that he's gotten, you can. But, I mean, honestly, I look across the board, even at our business, in our business, there are people out there that are immensely successful by the terms of the business. Do I look at them and say, boy, they're really good at what they do? Not necessarily. Are they good at the business? Do they know how the business works and do they exploit it? Yes. And there's a part of me that can't, that just, look, TV in particular is just, it feels, and I don't, you're new to this, so I wonder what your take is. TV does not feel real to me. It's not a real world. It's not.
It's one big production.
It's
made to look appealing to the consumer.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's not.
It's packaged.
Like reality TV is not reality TV.
No. There's no such thing. As soon as you put TV on it, there's nothing real about it.
You want real TV? Watch the news. Okay?
Yeah. And that's depressing. It's
depressing. That's real. Okay? If they're depressed, it's real. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? That's real.
That's a really good point.
And
you know what? You watch either the news or you watch PBS. So it's either depressing or it's educational to the point of being boring.
I used to watch PBS as a kid. I used to watch Ghost Rider.
I still do. I mean, I listen to to me, the PBS version of podcast is the BBC News podcast, and I listen to that every night just to kind of feel informed. But the reason I do is because it's often an English voice, and they speak like it's a golf tournament. And it is so soothing for me at the end of the day to get... Sleep? Yes. Puts me to sleep.
BBC One.
Oh, it's so good.
So the reason why I mentioned that Johnny was a great play financially for the organization is because when he was in Canada, he originally signed with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And then the Toronto Argonauts made a huge play. They wanted Johnny. So Hamilton sent Toronto Johnny and 2 offensive linemen. Remember this, Johnny Manziel and 2 offensive linemen. In exchange, Montreal gave them a defensive end that did pretty well, a wide receiver, Chris Williams. I think I played with him. I think he was in Seattle.
I was going to say, the funny part of this all is that the only name you were mentioning was Johnny Manziel. Everybody else was just a position.
But I think I'm trying to remember. And 2 first-round picks.
Whoa!
2 players and 2 first-round picks.
Wow.
Yes, for Johnny.
And they just picked him up. They just signed him.
what they were doing. Because also, too, in Toronto, like I said, the Blue Jays there, the MLS team is there, the Raptors are there. I mean, Maple Leafs are there.
Yep.
No, ain't no one going to a Toronto Argonauts game. But now that Johnny's in town, Memphis was in last place in the AAF. Okay?
I think they still are. But they won.
Fair enough.
No, but to your point, why not take a flyer on this? And I think, what does it say? Christian Hackenberg's on that roster. We're kind of floating all over the place. So John Gruden has spoken about how great Christian Hackenberg is. So just kind of explain that to me. Why does a Gruden go out on a limb and sing the praises of a Hackenberg who hasn't been able to kind of find his spot anywhere? Like, there's been all these people who have said, we don't have a place for him, or in parentheses, he can't play. And John Gruden comes out and sings his praises or says, yeah, I really like him, or etc. Like, why do that? No idea. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. I'm glad you're mystified too, because I didn't know whether there was a relationship there. I didn't know if you knew something about the business.
I think you know what it is. I think he's just like, he has intel just from his fired football coaches, his show. So I guess he grows. He spends times with the quarterbacks, and he ends up just liking them. I think that's just what it comes down to. Okay. It's like when you get to spend these, like, I don't know, 3 hours with somebody, and you get to do all your due diligence on them. So I have something interesting for you and Ryan I'll mention it for our last 4 minutes here for you and Ryan to talk about. So somebody responded to us about the whole, paying these guys for their likeness. Mm-hmm. And someone mentioned, well, if you don't want to deal with it, well, then go play elsewhere. Go to the JBA.
Right.
To do what Brandon Jennings did and go overseas. And play in a different league for that reason. Mm-hmm. Which is why the JBA was created. It was for guys who wanted alternative things in terms of that regard. So it'd be interesting to hear what you guys have to say about that.
We will address that in the Thursday podcast. Yeah. For sure. In the Wednesday podcast, I will address all the rumors of Jason Kidd. We have conflicting reports from ESPN. I didn't know that we would see this.
I'm just going to go to Cal.
Well, Jason has a really complicated history. I've known him a long time. We have a running billiards competition. There's a lot that I love and respect about Jay. But he's got a complicated history in a couple of places. And Cal is one of them. And the Lakers potentially, for a variety of reasons, is another one. But people have probably, I originally put out there that they were interested in him a couple months ago, and then heard about some issues with Byron Scott, former head coach of his, who's Lakers royalty in so many ways, that made it a bit of a challenge, got a stumbling block, shall we say. Now we've got Adrian Wojnarowski reporting that he would get serious consideration, and then Stephen A. Smith saying, not really. The Lakers are not considering him. I'll give you everything that I know. In the next podcast, I'll give you everything I know about that situation, as well as why Jay would be a great coach for LeBron and that team, and ultimately why I'm not sure that it would happen, and the misconceptions about what he's done as a coach, both in Brooklyn and in Milwaukee. All right, that does it for this podcast. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show, or even if you don't, it's okay. All we ask is that you rate us 1 star, 5 star. We take whatever you have, and we will pay attention to it, and we'll try to do better, or we'll try to continue to do well. But just leave us a rating. You don't have to leave a comment if you don't want to. But if you do leave a rating and you want something, screenshot it, send it to @BucherFriends, and we will put your name in the hopper for prizes. All right, that does it for Will and myself. As always, thanks for listening.